We're afraid of what people will think, or we're afraid we're not good enough, or we're afraid we're too much. And so we hold ourselves back. When we do that, we're muting ourselves. And there are too many people that are muting themselves in the world. And I, for so many years, was one of them. I've discovered the power of unmuting myself, of showing up in the world in a way that is joyfully expressed and boldly alive. That's something that has been so important to me as I've discovered how freeing it is to be unmuted, to unmute our body and to unmute our ideas and to unmute our desires, to unmute ourselves in relationships and at work, and to be our own advocates and to ask for what we want and need. The unmuted life is a life that is fully alive and fully expressed and confident and clear. And to me, it's the only way that I know how to live now. I know what it's like to feel confined and stuck and small and silenced. And I also know what it feels like to be expressed and alive and joyful and present and seen. And it's so much better of a life to be unmuted. And that is what I want to bring you into. Are you ready to unmute yourself? Let's make it happen. Hey there, and happy Unmuted Monday, everyone. Rachel Druckenmiller here, your host of the Unmute Yourself Show. It's episode 49. I cannot believe we've done this 49 times. Isn't that wild? In the past 2+ years, I'm really excited about it, really grateful for it. Doing something like this consistently, can take a lot of work and a lot of effort. But sometimes when we know that the thing that we're doing is having an impact, when it's positively supporting people, when it's giving people hope, when it's helping people feel less alone, when it's giving people a shift in perspective and the ability to start their week in a way that's more empowered and uplifted, you just tell yourself, this is a thing that's worth doing. And so that's why I keep showing up here. So I would love to know who is with us today. I'm so grateful that you all are here. This is going to be a solo show. I do these a few times a year. I just have so much that I want to share that I'm like, I just need to do this almost like a mini masterclass for free for all of you who are here today to get some insights about things that I've learned along the way, things that have really helped me show up and unmute my potential and move past fears and do things that I never thought that I would be doing. And my hope is that you'll walk away feeling more confident in your ability to do the kind of things you never knew that you could do. But to get started today, before we go into our first question, just let us know who's here with us today. Drop in the comments. Let us know where you are joining us from. Let us know that you're here. Just say, hey, even if you're sort of like partially listening because you're doing something else, or you're eating lunch and this is kind of running in the background like a podcast. I just love to know who's here so I can say hi, so I can acknowledge you, and to let you know that if you have questions along the way that you're welcome to drop those into the comments. You're welcome to send me a private message if you want to do that. But I would just love to know who is here with us today. I know Denise, you said hello. Denise from Houston. Good to have you here with us. I know that there's several dozen of you that are on the call because I can see the little number going up. So let us know, just drop in the comments. Let us know, even if it's just a hello. Nathan here from Colorado. Thank you, Nathan. Nathan is someone that I have worked with for, 3 years. Is it 3 years, Nathan? And does an amazing job. So glad you're here. Kevin from Sacramento, California. Good to have you here. Hey, Joe. It's good to see you pop up. I haven't seen your name in a while. So Joe from Boynton Beach. Good to have you with us today. And I want you to be thinking as we're going through today, this is going to be an opportunity too for you to ask questions. We'll get to the places where you might want to do that, during the show. But this is, again, going to be an opportunity for you to walk away from this with a perspective shift, with greater hope, and with a mindset of more possibilities. So if you haven't already, let us know where you're joining us from. Drop in the chat before we get started. Hey, Bill from Maine. Good to see you here. Bill, gosh, how long have we known each other? Probably almost 20 years, probably since the start of my career. But good to have you all with us today. So to get started, I want to mention a couple things. One, I had a call with my editor that I've been working with today on my book. making a lot of progress. My hope is that the manuscript, like the draft of the manuscript, is going to be done by the end of April. And then I am in conversations with 2 different publishers right now. And so I will keep y'all posted on that. So that is something that's in the works. And then my 4th song, the lyrics are about 95% written. And we've got some basic music that's there, a lot of work that still needs to be done. But I'm excited for that to continue to develop and to share that journey with all of you as well. So to get started here today, what I would like us to do is we're going to be, again, talking about breaking free from doubt and fear and unmuting and unlocking and unleashing our potential. So to get started, I would like to just open up with a question and invite you to think about, what is a goal? What is something that you want to accomplish? What's a goal that you have this year? As you think about the year ahead, it could be a personal goal, it could be a professional goal. But sometimes when we come together and we're in community, there's real power in voicing these things instead of keeping them secret and not telling anyone. When we start to put something out into the world, when we use our language to give voice to something, it actually puts some momentum and some power behind it that gives us the ability to start to open up new possibilities in our mind. So I just wanted to mention that as something that you may want to consider, may want to think about whenever you're in a situation of wanting to move forward in some way in your life. Sometimes just either writing it down, telling somebody else, sharing about it somewhere can start to build the momentum you need to move in the right direction to make it actually happen. So if you want to drop in the comments, what is a goal? What is a goal that you have for this year, either personally or professionally? It can be something small, it could be something big, or you can just jot it down on a piece of paper right next to you. But this is really going to be an opportunity for you to actually kind of work through something today, is my goal, so that when you leave this, you have a bit more clarity on whatever the thing is that is most important to you personally. So when I think about a goal that I have, again, one of them is getting this book written and the publisher set and the publication date for 2025 set. That's a goal that I have this year. And it's been a goal for a long time. Writing a book has been something I've wanted to do for years. And I've started writing 3 different books. And I started writing the first one in 2015 or 2016, signed up for a writing course, wrote a bunch of pages with no direction and really no clear plan or strategy for how to do it. And eventually decided, I don't know that I want to write a book about nutrition, which was my focus at the time. And then a few years ago, well, hey, Nathan, maybe you can connect to Bill because Bill lives in Maine. So he could give you some insights on what to do when you go there. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there with what I was saying. But the book thing, yeah. So then I got approached in the fall of 2018 by somebody to write a book with them. Started down that road, wrote about 40,000 words. And then that process just sort of, stopped in its tracks right at the start of the pandemic. And I was really discouraged. And then I realized the reason those other things didn't happen is because I'm supposed to be writing the book I'm writing now. So to start, when we think about these goals that we're setting, sometimes we can set a goal and it takes a while to come to fruition, or we might kind of stutter step. We might have things that we start to move toward, whatever that thing is. Maybe you can think about this in your own life, in your work, in your career, your creative expression, we might move towards something. And it might take us all kinds of sideways directions to get there. And it doesn't mean that we're not making progress just because it doesn't look as linear as we expected it to. I could have said I failed at writing, 2 books, but the reality is the process of starting those 2 led me to the place that I am now. So to think about, what is a goal? So starting, what is a goal that you have for yourself? And again, feel free if you want. Wow, Joe, I love that. Okay, record and publish 52 podcast episodes. Finish the manuscripts for 2 books I currently have in development. Bill McPeck, one of my goals is to repurpose the 500 plus articles I now have on LinkedIn. I think you win the award for most articles on LinkedIn. That's a ton. So really thinking through, so what I'm hearing too for those are travel, I'm seeing content creation. So thinking for yourself, right, what is something that you want to accomplish? And one of the things that I find helpful is to sometimes document these things. So Bill and I, my husband Bill and I, go through a process at the end of each year where we do a look back from the year before and we do a look forward to the year ahead. And I'll drop in one more thing that was mentioned here. So Susan said, figuring out income opportunities to fund repairs needed for a historic home and buildings on a farm I hope to inherit in the next year. Wow. So there's all sorts of goals and there's there's not any type of goal that we need to have, but when we are intentional about how we approach it, we're more likely to get it done. And so I'll go through the process that Bill and I go through when we're doing kind of goal setting at the end of the year and stepping into the beginning of a year. But one of the things I want to invite you to do first is to take a step back. And as you think about something that particularly a goal that you do have control over, because sometimes we don't have control over something and it's really hard to set goals around something we can't influence or control. So if you think about something that you want to do, that you have the ability to influence, to ask yourself the question of what is the cost of me not doing this? So if I don't do this, right? So if Joe does not record and publish these 52 podcast episodes, if Joe doesn't finish the manuscript for the 2 books in development, if Bill doesn't repurpose all of his thought leadership that he's created and generated on LinkedIn, and if Nathan doesn't take this trip to go to Maine. So if we think about the things that we want to do and then reverse it and say, what is the cost? Ask ourselves, what is the cost of me not doing this? So you can think of this for your career. What is the cost of me not making a decision to apply for that promotion? What is the cost of me, not spending more time with my kids? What is the cost of me not being more present with my partner? What is the cost of me not taking care of my health and well-being? Right? So when we think about it in terms of what's the cost, we can feel a little bit of pain, which can actually be helpful in giving us the clarity and the momentum that we need to move forward. So we ask, what is the cost of me not doing this? What do I and other people miss out on? What kind of contribution do I rob the world of or the people that I love of by not doing this thing? These can be some helpful questions that we can start to think about instead of getting right into what's the goal I want to do? And here's steps 1, 2, and 3 to do it. To take a step back and say, well, so let's say I don't do that. Right? What's the cost? What is potentially the not so good thing that happens if I don't do those things? And then flip it to the positive frame and say, what becomes possible if I make that goal a reality? So Joe, for you to think, what becomes possible if I publish these 52 podcast episodes and get these 2 books done and written and published? And for Bill, what becomes possible if you start putting all of your thought leadership out into the world and sharing these experiences and insights you have? Right? And Nathan, what becomes possible if you travel across the country and have this trip with your wife to Maine? Right? And so what becomes possible, Susan, as you start to do the work needed to make these repairs to this home that you have in this vision for you're close to, it sounds like close to something in your future. So when we think about what becomes possible, asking ourselves those 2 questions about any goal that we have is really powerful. What is the cost of not doing? Status quo, stay the same, don't move in any direction. I let that goal stay a goal. I let that vision stay a vision. I separate myself from it. It's out there. I am here. What's the pain? What's the pain in that gap? And then alternately, what becomes possible if that happens? So I think, what becomes possible what's the cost of me not sharing my next song, right? Well, the cost is that I had this thing in me that emerged that I can't necessarily explain rationally, that is a universal message that I know a lot of people will relate to. And the cost of me not sharing that is I rob, 1, myself of the opportunity of creative expression. And then 2, I rob other people who might really resonate with the message of the song. I rob them of the opportunity to feel validated in a similar experience. And what becomes possible? What becomes possible is I continue to be able to trust myself to be a creative, to be someone who creates, to be someone who trusts myself enough to put my gift and my voice and my message into the world. The other thing that becomes possible is other people who have a similar experience, who never talk about the thing I'm writing the song about, have this sense of like, oh my gosh, like I thought I was the only one that felt that. Oh, I feel gotten, I feel understood. Now maybe I can talk about that. So much becomes possible. So those 2 questions, I think, are 2 of the most powerful questions we can be asking ourselves when we're in a position of feeling stuck, when we're in a position of fear. What is the cost? What's lost if we don't do the thing? Which is, by the way, one of the questions I asked in my TED Talk, which was one of my goals last year, doing a TED Talk, and I did a TED Talk last July. You can find it online, search my name and TEDx. I'll be sharing about that more coming up in the next couple weeks. And then again, what becomes possible? So what's the cost and what becomes possible? Those are 2 of the most powerful questions that we can be asking ourselves when we are in a position of stuckness, but we have a goal that we want to move toward and we're not moving toward it, is to get real clarity on those 2 things. So those are the first two things I wanted to mention that I think are helpful. And then from there, I'm going to go back to the process that Bill and I engage in. So over the past decade, Bill and I have done something at the end of each year that's been a really powerful practice. It's very easy and all of you can do it. And it's been a way for us to take stock of the year, to shift our mindset to a place of appreciation, to a place of gratitude, to really sort of embed and do what Rick Hansen, who was a guest on the show last spring, to take in the good. Because as we start to take in the good and we start to absorb these things and reinforce these good things that have happened, we start to sort of lay that track in our mind that shows us that this coming into this place of gratitude can actually really lift our mood, and it can become more of the place that our brain goes to instead of immediately always staying in this place of stuckness and negativity and focus on problems versus possibilities. So what we do is we have these journals. I've had a couple different journals that I've written these in. And we go to brunch and we have a calendar, like a wall calendar from Shutterfly, and then our phones. And we go through month by month, week by week, day by day. And we look through and we track what were all of the milestone moments that happened in the prior year. What were the trips that we went on? What were the fun things that we did? What were the new places we explored? What were the goals we accomplished? And we go through and we just alternate, and we go day by day, week by week, month by month, through the calendar, through our phones, through pictures on our phones, not just the calendars on our phone, but through our pictures on our phones. And we write them all down. We write them all down. So this entire journal, this is at this point, we can probably fit half of this year in it. It takes about 20 pages to do 1 year and to write down all the great things that have happened. And so this is something that we do by going back, and we're looking for that sort of proof in the past of all the great things that have happened. And so few of us take time to do this, and we miss these moments that maybe something happened, last April that was really great, but because 8 months went by after that, you forgot about it. And when you take the time to go back and you look at whatever that thing is, you think to yourself, gosh, that was a really great thing. Or maybe I want to go revisit that. Or maybe we should try that again. Or what would happen if we did like the 2.0 version of that? So taking the time to pause and to reflect and to look back on all of the things that you accomplished, on all the things that you enjoyed, on all of the things that brought you life, that's a really powerful practice for us. And so we do that. We do that once a year. You could do it once a month. Some people do it daily in gratitude journaling. But at the very least, taking that time once a year to go back and kind of recap everything good that's happened has been really powerful. So that's a practice that I would encourage you to do. And then as we think about moving forward and breaking through, some of these fears that we have, one of the things that I've found is when we're experiencing doubt, when we're experiencing a sense of unworthiness, when we're experiencing a sense of stuckness, what can be really helpful for us to do is, as we look forward, to recognize that confidence is the byproduct of action. Like we don't get more confident when we just think over something 75 more times. That's not how we get more confident. We get more confident when we start taking action toward a thing. So I've always been nervous about singing in front of people. And for so much of my life, I just did what a lot of us do when we're nervous about something, when something stirs up fear in us, and I just didn't do it, right? It was easier for me to not do the thing than to take the risk to do the thing and mess up or embarrass myself or fall flat on my face or get some kind of outcome that was other than what I wanted, which was for people to be impressed by me. And so what can happen is we let that fear rule us and dictate how we show up. But then sometimes we have an experience that shifts something in us and makes us think, maybe I should try that thing. And that for me was a semester abroad in Spain, my junior year of college. Came back, tried out for the gospel choir, had my first solo that I was actually excited about, and then continued to sing little by little. Even though I was doing that, I was still nervous to sing in front of people. And 15 years went by after that before I really did anything with music other than sing at church sometimes. And for me, it was taking the time to find out. I'm going to give you 3 questions to ask yourself. 3 questions to ask yourself. So if you're taking notes, you're going to want to grab a pen for this. The 3 questions that I find really helpful if you have something that you want to do, but you're not really sure how to get there, is to ask yourself these questions. Where do I want to go? So sort of like, what do I want to be doing? How do I need to grow? So where do I want to go? How do I need to grow? Like, what are the ways I need to grow to get to where I want to go? And then who do I need to know? So who are the people I need to know that can help accelerate me to get to where I want to go? And there's another question that doesn't necessarily rhyme with all of those, but it's very much related. I'll figure out how to make it rhyme. I just need to mull on it a little bit, but how do I want to feel? Because a lot of the times we have these goals, we have these things I want to accomplish, boom, 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 boom. And we don't think about, we think that if I do this, then I will feel X. I will feel accomplished. I will feel proud. I will feel these other things. And we wait until we accomplish the goal to feel the things we want to feel. And there's a really great book that I found at a bookstore years ago. It's by a woman named Danielle Laporte. And the book was called The Desire Map. And she wrote another book that I love. I think I've talked about it on the show before. It's called The Fire Starter Sessions, a soulful and practical guide to creating success on your own terms. I got this book, 15 years ago, maybe longer. And it's just a really helpful book. It's kind of helping you get unstuck, asking you a bunch of questions. Things like, can you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be? And it just really stirs things up in you. But the thing that stood out most to me at the beginning of the book, it was New Year's Eve when I came upon it about 10 years ago. And one of the things I found that she described that was so powerful, related to goal setting, relating to moving forward into our potential, is this idea that so often when we set goals, it's just this it's another list of to-dos. And most of us are in a situation where we're like, thanks, I have enough to do. I don't need more stuff, more tasks on my to-do list. I need to be inspired to do them. And so she said, instead of asking the question, what do you want to do? You ask the question, how do I want to feel? How do I want to feel? And if we ask ourselves that question, you say, how do I want to feel? Some of the ways I've answered that, I want to feel radiant. I want to feel connected. I want to feel flowing. I want to feel clear. And when we connect to how we want to feel, then we reverse engineer it. And we say, okay, well, what are all the things that help me feel the way I want to feel? And the reality is for some of us that think feelings can be a little bit superfluous. We really just need to be logical about this. The reality is there's been research done on stroke victims, stroke patients who've had the part of their brain damaged, their limbic system, which is, I'm not touching the right part of the brain, but their limbic system has been damaged. That's the seat of their emotions and their motivation. And when they have damaged their limbic system, they become incapable of making decisions. So emotions, whether we like it or not, are part of every single decision that we make, even the most logical ones. And so when we connect to how do I want to feel, that's something that really moves us. So how do I want to feel? And what do I think that getting that goal or getting to that outcome, what do I think feeling is going to come along with that? So this is interesting. There's a question here. I'm gonna come back to that. So maybe Nathan, maybe remind me to come back to Bill's question. I will answer that. I haven't exactly thought about that, but I have some responses I'll give. So in any case, that process of asking ourselves, right, where do I want to go? How do I want to grow? Who do I need to know? And how do I want to feel? These are really around any goal that you have. So you think about where do you want to go? What's something you want to do and something you want to accomplish? How do you need to grow to get there? So some of the ways you might need to grow are by taking some type of a course that's going to help you move in that direction. It might be a training or a certification. Like when I knew I wanted to become a professional speaker, I invested in a training program called Heroic Public Speaking. And I put a bunch of my own money into it and cleared out my bank account, which was very scary. I called my husband. I said, do you trust me, before I made that move? And that program was the catalyst that got me to leave my job to do the thing I wanted to do more than anything else, which was to speak professionally. So that was kind of a way I needed to grow, was I needed to learn more about stage performance and script and writing scripts and vocal coaching and blocking and operative words, all of these speaker type things, and the business of speaking. I needed to learn a lot to get to where I wanted to go, which was to become an entrepreneur and speak full time. And I needed to know people that had been there before. So sometimes growing and knowing can come together. So I connected through those trainings and certifications to other people that were already doing what I wanted to be doing, and I could learn from them. So going through that process, I went through that process without realizing I was going through that process. And when I thought about how I wanted to feel, well, I thought, gosh, when I am speaking, one of the ways that I felt radiant is when I was on stage speaking and sharing stories and connecting to people and feeling the energy of a room shift. And so I was very, very clear on, gosh, when I'm doing this thing, I feel all these things I want to feel. I feel expansive. I feel free. I feel radiant. I feel like myself. I feel present. And so then I was more motivated to get to where I wanted to go and to do the growth practices I needed to do and to connect with the people I needed to connect with, because I was so clear on what I was going to feel on the other side of it. So sort of the summary here of this little thing that I'm sharing, this part of what I'm sharing today, is to get really clear on that feeling part. When you have a goal that you're setting, what do you think is on the other side of it? And what are some little things you can start doing now to feel the way you want to feel, so you don't have to wait to accomplish the goal until you get that feeling? What are the little things you can do along the way? So I want to pause there. I'm going to answer some questions. If you have any questions that are coming up, feel free to drop them in the comments. Again, this is sort of to reset here. This is a little bit of a masterclass. These are snippets of types of things I share in my keynotes that I deliver on stage, but I thought I have so much I want to share with all of you that I just wanted to do a solo show to do that. And so if you have questions that you want to ask, feel free to drop them into the comments and I will do my best to answer them. So Bill asked a question. He said, I'm curious if you and Bill have created a joint life plan in addition to your annual joint goals. So interesting question. We haven't mapped out a life plan specifically. There's so much that changes, and I'll give you an example of why. So for instance, many of you know, a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, I was involved in a car accident that led to a back fracture in the midst of the pandemic. Two things no one could have planned, right? And so if I had at that point said, here's my life plan of the things that are going to happen, and then all this stuff gets in the way and interrupts it, sometimes I feel like having the ability to pivot annually gives us a little bit more wiggle room. And a lot of the times when I'm setting a goal for the future, I might say it's something I want to accomplish in the next year, but the reality is, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking this is probably going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. So checking in with each other on an annual basis, and we do, as I mentioned, that this practice of checking in with one another, we reflect on the past year across every area of our life, our work, our finances, our relationship as a marriage, our friendships, our family, our physical, mental, and emotional health and well-being, our leisure time. All the things we're writing down in that little journal are connected to all of these different aspects of our life. It's not just our work and it's not just our relationship. We pull in as much from as many areas of our life as we can. And then we reflect on, there's several questions we think about from the prior year. Some questions you could think about as you reflect on the past year, like what's something that you're proud of? This was a really interesting question for you to think about for yourself. Who are 3 people that influenced you the most? So who are 3 people that influenced you the most? And who are 3 people that you influenced? Most of us don't. When we think about a year, recap, we're not thinking about stuff like that. But those can be powerful considerations and questions to be reflecting on. Another question that we asked, that we talked about and reflected on, and we'll sit there, we'll reflect individually, and then we'll share our thoughts with each other. We ask, what were you not able to accomplish that you wanted to? And so it might be, I wasn't able to accomplish a commitment to working out consistently the way that I wanted to, or I wasn't able to accomplish a consistent sleep routine like I wanted to, or I wasn't able to finish my book manuscript like I wanted to, or we didn't go on that retreat we said we were going to go on. So you think about what maybe did you not accomplish, and then maybe what's something you learned about yourself. So as we think about looking back, what are things we're proud of? Who did we influence? What did we accomplish? What did we not accomplish? So we keep that front of mind. And sometimes the thing we did not accomplish repeats itself a couple years in a row before we get to the point where we're ready to deal with it. And so as we're thinking about this process, it's this iterative process. People that are intentional, people that are thoughtful about how they're approaching their vision for their own future and what's possible are consistently looking at it. I said we do this practice once a year, but we are checking in with ourselves and checking in with each other throughout the year to touch base. If I notice he says something's important to him and he stops doing it, I'll follow up with him and say, hey, I know you said this was really important to you, and I haven't noticed you doing it in the past month. Is there any way I can support you? So it's, instead of nagging somebody or guilting or shaming somebody, it becomes, hey, I know this is important to you. And how can I better support you to do that thing? So that really is that reflecting piece, it's really critical to moving forward. And I hope that's coming clear here. Like we do a ton of reflection. We do a ton of looking inward. We do a ton of sharing outward. So just going through these processes and practices can be really powerful. There's also something that we do as we take a step back to look forward. To look backward and to ask ourselves those kind of questions. And then as we're moving forward, some of the things that are really helpful to think about, and Bill and I have done this. I'm going to share this with you. This is a picture of something that is on a piece of paper. I'm going to share this with you. So this is an example of some of the, we draw these pictures as we think about the year ahead. We, in picture and word form, write down things that are important or meaningful to us, things we want to accomplish in the year ahead, things we want to be celebrating. So I have here a very poorly drawn picture of a bicep. Strong and shredded for summer. I started working with a personal trainer last fall. That's really kind of helped me move in that direction. I have a goal for a number of minutes of exercise on the Peloton. Being a guest on the Kelly Clarkson show is a goal of mine for the year. I wrote it down. I don't know how realistic it is. I don't really necessarily care. I'm just starting to put things into the world, and writing them down is really helpful. I drew a picture of a little Southwest heart and pick places Bill and I want to go to, places you want to travel. There's a retreat I want to go on that at the time, there was no date set for, and it was a possibility that it was going to be happening. And I've signed up for it, called a Wisdom of Your Body retreat. I drew a picture of my book cover. It said publication date set for 2025. I said sing and community at Horizon, our church, and Bill and I actually sang together yesterday. He led worship at our church for the first time ever, and played guitar, and we were both singing together, and it was really cool. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is because when we feel stuck, sometimes getting creative with how we approach our future visioning can be really helpful. It might be writing things down. It might be drawing pictures. It might be going through your past or a calendar and looking through things that inspire you and reminding yourself of how great that felt. So anything that you can do to create a map for your mind to say, this is where I want to go. This is how I want to feel, right? These are the commitments I'm going to make to my growth. I think of investing in myself with weekly therapy. I think of investing in myself with retreats in terms of growth. I think of investing with having weekly vocal coaching and getting speaking coaching and working with a personal trainer, right? I'm not doing any of these things alone. When I think about a book coach, anything that I want to accomplish of significance, I am not doing by myself. And that may be helpful for you to remind yourself of. Anything of real great magnitude that you're going to accomplish is probably going to be done with the support of at least one other person. And so that's another thing I've learned. I'm a very independent person. I like to do things on my own, but it's very helpful to remind myself as I look back and say, gosh, anything of great significance you've accomplished has been done with other people, Rachel. So that might be helpful for you to think about. I even wrote down friend time and put the list of names of several people who are really life-giving for me to spend time with, that I'm going to more consistently reach out to connect with and share meals with and catch up with. So really thinking about your life in that holistic sense, drawing a map. And my map is not pretty. It's not linear. It's not organized in any way. My pictures and my words, they are what they are. And so just going through that process can be really, really helpful. A year ahead joint picture, an interesting twist on a vision board. Yeah, I love that. So having a joint picture, because what we do is we share them with each other, and then we notice the overlap. So we'll both draw our pictures out, and then I'll share mine, and I'll I put learn something new together. And since then, Bill and I have been using the Duolingo app every day to for me to relearn Spanish, for him to learn Spanish. And that's been really fun for us to be doing little mini Spanish conversations with each other. Learning something new has been really helpful. So it is a different twist on a vision board, and it doesn't require cutting out pictures from magazines, which you can totally do. It literally requires a few markers and a piece of paper. And it's really thinking about the year ahead. What do you want it to look like? Why will it be great? In an ideal world, what would it look like? My dad asks the question often of, if it were just right, what would it look like? If it were just right, what would it look like? So much of moving through fear is mobilizing yourself into action. That's really what it is. Because when we're in a place of fear, we often feel stuck and we feel immobilized. But if we start to move forward, even if the action is not actually taking the action, but it's writing down taking the action, sometimes just that can be the thing that helps to move us and catalyze us to get started on doing what we say is meaningful or important to us. Let me see. If there's any other questions, feel free to drop them in. And again, we're talking here about breaking from fear, breaking free from doubt and fear. If you're just joining us, you're going to want to, when the show's over, go back and watch from the beginning. So I've been talking through several processes to go through. One is asking yourself 2 questions when you think about a goal that you have. What is the cost of you not doing it? What becomes possible if you do it? As you think about your goals and moving forward, where do you want to go? How do you want to grow? Who do you need to know? And how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel being that real, the sticky part there? And then as you're moving forward and thinking about the year ahead, first starting by looking back and saying, what do I appreciate? What am I proud of? What am I grateful for from the year prior in every area of my life? And spending time to document it. It takes us hours to do that. But it's worth it. And we break it up. Sometimes we do an hour and then we go back the next weekend and we do another hour, or we do it over dinner one night. But taking the time to go back and map out and look through the things that have happened in the past that you're really grateful for and the things that worked can be particularly helpful. Joe asked a great question. What are your thoughts on the relationship between courage and confidence? Here's my thoughts on the relationship between courage and confidence. Confidence is the byproduct of action, right? So I said that. Confidence is the byproduct of action. And I believe that when as we become more confident, as we take action, even little action, and we have these mini moments of wins where we recognize, okay, I do a thing and I make a little bit of progress. That helps me instill a little bit of trust in myself. The more I build up this bank of trust in myself, the more I become courageous to be able to do other things. So confidence, I believe, has a contagion effect. One, within ourselves, the more we do the things we say we're going to do and we move forward with some type of measurable progress, even if it's only visible to you and no one else, that helps to build courage inside of us to say, you know what? I didn't know that I could do that thing, but I'm showing myself through my action that I can do the thing I said I was going to do. And that sense of having integrity within yourself is something that I think can build up courage. Also, thinking about something that you've never done before, something that you've been afraid of doing, something that you've been hesitant to do, something you had doubt about. I find that as we say, okay, I see that thing. I've made the decision in my mind that, okay, there's a cost to not doing that. And here's what becomes possible if I do it, even though I'm not sure what the outcome's going to be. And even though I feel a little anxious inside about moving forward, I'm going to take the first step forward anyway and do it. So I'll give you an example of this, Joe. When I started to write music, I did not know that I could write music. I have zero training in songwriting. I have zero training in composing music. I can't even read music, like full stop. I can't even read music. I don't play any instruments, okay? So I could have looked at myself and been like, what kind of confidence could you possibly have to be a songwriter? What kind of confidence could you possibly have to be a songwriter? Like you haven't done any of the stuff you need to do. So I found somebody, Leroy, who's been on the show. I found somebody who had an area of expertise in an area that I didn't. He has a degree in music composition and he can play all kinds of instruments and read music and arrange music. And so I was somebody who I loved writing my whole life. I loved writing poems when I was younger. I didn't really share them publicly, but I've always loved to write. And I listened to a lot of music from songwriters. And we sat down together. And once I got clear on the message I wanted to deliver, which for the first song was to tell people that they are somebody who matters and that they're enough, Leroy did his part of playing the instrumental. And then I put the lyrics over it. And I sang, which is something that I, again, publicly don't have as much confidence doing. I'm building my confidence to do that. But the more I did the little thing and I got encouraged from somebody else, the more I felt like, okay, maybe I can do this. And then we moved a little forward, made a little more progress in the song. And he was encouraging. And I thought, okay, I am doing this. Like, I'm not trying to write a song. I am writing a song. And it was uncomfortable. And it was also exhilarating and really joyful. And so sometimes we have to put ourselves in these situations where we have no idea what we're doing. And we just keep saying yes anyway. I don't know what I'm doing. I launched a business with no business plan. I just kept moving in the direction I felt like I was being pulled to go. And I kept doing the things that I thought you should do to run a business, like reach out to people and tell them what I was doing and start speaking in as many places as I could. So as we think about the connection between confidence and courage, I think they're very, very much connected, but I think they start with being rooted clearly in why the thing that we're doing matters. Like, why does it matter to you? Why does it matter to the world? Really connecting deeply to the purpose behind why we want to do the thing we say we want to do. And then as we do that, we get this conviction to say, okay, I have to take action. I have to move forward. We feel compelled. And as we start to build that confidence, as we take these iterative steps to do the thing, and we start to trust ourselves more, we become more courageous along the way because we're proving to ourselves that we are capable of doing a thing that is difficult or challenging or scary, and that we are capable of moving through it. That happens by doing. So these are some things. Yes, in addition to courage, there's research on confidence loop. Yes. So the more competent we feel, the more confident we feel. And so there's 4, I don't know if you're referring to the conscious competence, unconscious competence. There's a lot on that that's out there. But as we become more competent, one of the ways we become competent is by doing a thing and proving to ourselves we can do the thing we say. Or by showing ourselves that we have a skill, or maybe someone validates something in you and you're like, you're really good at that. Maybe they say that to you. Hey, that was really great. Like, I love that podcast episode I just listened to. And you're like, oh, tell me more about that. What about it did you really enjoy? Gosh, the way you guided the conversation was just so interesting. And I felt that I was leaning in, and I love the questions that you asked. They were so thoughtful. And right. So you can see here, as we get feedback from other people, sometimes that confidence building can come as a result of what I call borrowing other people's belief in us. So sometimes we don't have the confidence within ourselves. We can go to other people that have seen us in action, or that have experienced the benefit of our work, or of what we've created, of our creative expression, perhaps. And they can tell us what they see in us. And as we start to hear that, that can also build our confidence, which can make us more courageous. Exactly. So, well, there you go. So in any case, those are some things I thought I would share on that. Joe, let me know if that's helpful. I've written about these things before. I talk a lot about confidence and courage in my work and the book that I'm writing, actually. So that's something that I'm currently writing about right now. Everything I just shared is actually the connection between those things is in the book that I'm writing. So you will get more on that in the next within the next year. So heads up on that. Would love to welcome any other questions that you have. Any other questions that you might have about this topic. And let me know what's helpful. I know we've got several dozen of you that are here with us today. I would love to just take a pause and just see from you what's been helpful that's been shared so far. If you want to drop in the chat or give us a hello, let us know where you're joining from. What has been particularly helpful? What's resonating with you? What's really landed with you? What's been useful or helpful so far? If you want to let us know, it's very helpful for me to know, because when I'm here just on the screen, I don't know who's with us. But I know that you're there, and it does help me to be able to hear from you, to know what is resonating so far as we're talking through this experience, through this process. What has been helpful? And let me go ahead and refresh the page. Sometimes stuff doesn't come through until I do that. But otherwise, I will keep moving forward and sharing some things that have been helpful as we move through doubt and fear and overcome these things. I think one of the things that's been really useful, I'm seeing some thumbs up. That's very useful. Thank you. But yeah, feel free, if you haven't already, drop in the comments, say hello. Let us know what is resonating with you from this conversation today. It really helps me to know too, speaking of building competence and confidence. Doing that board together while reflecting on the past year, it is really helpful to visualize the year ahead. Yeah, let us know. It is helpful for me to hear from you, to find out what is resonating. And if you have anything to share, what helps you when you are feeling stuck? What helps you to, Joe, if you want to share with us, what are some things that you have found helpful in building confidence or building courage? Feel free to drop some wisdom in the comments. It's always helpful when we can learn from each other. I'll just take a pause there and see if there's anything else that emerges as y'all are dropping that in. I will also share, as I mentioned, that my TEDx talk is out, and more of that's going to be shared coming up. And this is probably going to go right into a video. So hold on one second. There we go. Oh dear. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that into the comments so you can see that. So there we go. All right. So far, it was the joint picture idea. Yeah, it is helpful. And just the visualization, when we're kids, we draw all the time. And then as an adult, we just stop doing anything. A lot of us, people that are artists don't. But most of us, we put all the markers away and we stop drawing pictures and we stop visioning things. And it's really helpful to take some time to go through, particularly if you're in a committed or like relationship with somebody, to be able to go through and have a conversation about it's like, what do we want our life to look like? And Joe, feel free to chime in if there was anything. I think I dropped that in. Did I get that in there? Susan, great. Yeah, feel free. Oh, wait, I don't know why that's not loading. Did it load? Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry about that. All right, 3 questions plus the idea of asking yourself, how do I want to feel? Asking what's the cost of not accomplishing it? Yeah, that can be different questions, move different people. So it is, I like to share a bunch of different questions that I think can really be helpful. And again, I'm going to be outlining all of these things in my book. So good news on that. And yeah, Joe, let us know. I know you were here a moment ago. Let us know, what do you find helpful with the courage and the competence piece from your model that you're developing? What have you learned? I would love to hear you chime in as well. So anyway, moving forward on that, as we think about a couple other things and moving forward, breaking through the doubt and fear that we have, unmuting our sense of potential, is being in community. So when you think about other people that are doing the things that you want to be doing, it is helpful to, instead of look at them from afar, ask, how could I involve myself in that community of people? How could I connect to people that are doing things that I want to be doing, that are in some way similar in terms of being the type of people who envision what's possible? And so if you think about something that you want to do, something you want to accomplish, so Joe, it might be, you may already be in some type of a community of podcasters or authors, but that might be something that you want to, consider, is being involved in a community of other people that do the types of things that are important to you. Or if you want to write these 2 books, to be a part of a, other community. I don't know if you have publishers or not, but I know there's a lot of people that are out there, that are helping people to write books. And so part of it can be, who do I need to, again, connect with to help me get to the point of where I want to go? So the last thing I'll share with you is another book, one of my favorite books. I read it a couple years ago. I'm going to hope my headphones don't disconnect. So I left it on my shelf. So give me 1 second. Okay, good deal. This was a popular book several years ago. It's called Atomic Habits by a guy named James Clear. And the last thing I'll share with you that's really helpful when it comes to moving past fears and moving toward the life that we want, is to get clear on how we ask ourselves questions. Again, I've shared a lot of questions with you here today. Some of my favorite questions that I ask on stage, that I have in the book that I'm writing, that I'm going to be asking people to reflect on and think about. The TED Talk didn't load. Okay. Sometimes it doesn't in the comments. You might just have to copy. I've liked it. You might just have to copy the link, copy it and paste it in your browser window. So one of the things that he talks about in this book is shifting from, again, when it comes to goal setting, that any types of significant change happens at the level of not the outcome. We're often focused on the outcome. I want to lose weight. I want to do X. I want to do Y. I want to do Z. And instead focus on the internal identity shift that you want to experience. So any meaningful change, sustainable change that happens in our lives happens at the level of our identity. And the question that he suggests, a version of the question that he asks, that we suggest that we ask ourselves, is just to ask, what type of person do I want to be? And what would that type of person do? So if I say, I want to be the type of person who is energized and feels strong in my body. Okay, well, what would a type of person who feels energized and strong in their body, what would they do? Well, they'd probably eat a certain way. They would probably move their body consistently. They would probably not stay up until 12:30 in the morning watching the 7th episode of whatever that just keeps, not that I've ever done this, on Netflix. They would be mindful of likely things like drugs and alcohol. So when you ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be? That gets to the change at the identity level, the shift at the identity level. And so it's really helpful for us to be mindful of the fact that any major change that we expect to have happen in our lives is something that is going to require a shift deep, deep down. To ask ourselves that question of what kind of person do I want to be? And so you think about the year ahead and you ask yourself, well, what kind of person do I want to be? If I want to be a generous person, what would that person do? If I want to be a mindful person, what would that kind of person do? If I want to be somebody who is brave, what would that kind of person do? If I want to be somebody who's the kind of person who's hopeful, what would a hopeful person do in whatever situation you're in? So really asking yourself, what kind of person do you want to be? And I appreciate Joe sharing, or the body works better when it's relaxed. So I focus on remaining relaxed. I have faith in my skills, remaining patient and focused, having the right paradigm and perspective. A concept called the 5 paradigms: survival, fear, limited, risk and reward, and abundance. I tend to focus on risk and reward or abundance. Yes, exactly. Identity is a powerful motivator. Who do you want to be? Yeah, this is a different question. Exactly. Thanks for adding that in, Joe. So yeah, what I was just sharing from James Clear, where he says, what kind of person do I want to be? That who do you want to be is really helpful. And even I've heard someone say, what version of myself, if it's 20 years from now, right? And I'm looking back, and I'm really proud of who I am 20 years from now. What kind of person do I need to be now? What are the things I need to be doing now to become someone I will be proud of 20 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 5 years from now? Which is another way of asking, what kind of person do I want to be? Which is another way of asking, who do you want to be? So these are the types of questions that can really be helpful. So much of it comes back to reflection. So much of it comes back to being willing to sit with ourselves, to sit with our past, to absorb and soak in all the goodness of all that's already happened, and to be willing to take the risk to dream and to imagine and to map out, whether it's in writing or drawing or pictures or a combination of both, to map out what we want the future to look like and to feel like. Because that alone, just starting that process, writing those things down, sharing them with somebody else, can be enough of a little catalyst to kind of get us going, to move us in the direction of the things that we say are most important. So with that, I know we're rounding out the end of our time here. I wanted to see if there were any remaining questions, any areas of your life where you are feeling stuck. You've got some coaching available to you right now. This is something I, as an appreciation to all of you who are so consistently support all the shows I put out there and content and whatnot. This is an opportunity for me to be able to come back and appreciate you. And if you're, or give you a gift. And if you're watching the replay of this and you're like, oh, I missed it, send me a DM with your question. I'm happy to respond to you there. So I wanted to take a pause and see if there's any other questions that are emerging or anything you want to drop in the comments that's been particularly helpful. Again, I know that we've got several dozen people that are with us on the live today, and I'm so grateful that you're here. If you want to drop into the comments, let us know what has really stood out. What's been the greatest gift from the past 55 minutes together? What's been something that really resonated with you? And maybe even what's an action step that you're going to take moving forward? Would love to hear from you as we kind of start to wrap up our time together today. I would love to just have your voices be some of the last ones as we start to do that, because it's really, for me, inspiring to hear all of the things that you have to share. And as again, I mentioned a couple of the books that I find particularly helpful. One is called The Firestarter Sessions by Danielle Laporte. The other is called Atomic Habits. There's a lot of really great books. These are just two I mentioned today on the show. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Oh, hi. Oh, so great. Leslie, good to see you here. Yes, I know that you'll find the episode helpful. So thanks for stopping in and saying hello. Leslie is a gem of a human being. If you're not already following her, you should be. So, with that, I want to let you all know the next episode of the show is going to be sorry, not next week. It's going to be on the 25th with Courtney Peterson. Courtney Peterson is someone I connected with several years ago through my work speaking to schools. And so she has a lot of insights on leadership that I know are going to be really powerful. And I'm excited for all of you to get to meet her and learn from her, connect with her in 2 weeks when we have her on the show on the 25th. And then I'm working out my spring schedule now as well. So more details to come on that. But with that, if anyone has any final thoughts they want to share, any final questions or comments or just appreciations from the past hour, it's so great to see that so many people are here today. Again, I can see this little number that I don't know if you all can see that too. Maybe you can. But if there's anything else that you want to add in or interject as a final thought, feel free. Otherwise, I will give you a couple minutes of your time back. Bill, I'm so glad that you found the perspective helpful. I think there's a lot out there about these things, these topics, and I like to share what I've learned because I think all of us have different perspectives that can be a benefit to somebody else. So if you're just joining us and you miss the show, you can always go back and watch the replay once it wraps. But I want to thank you all for being here today. And feel free to send me a private message too if you didn't. Sometimes people don't want to write things in the comments. But if there was anything that really resonated with you, feel free to send me a message. I always love hearing from you. And yes, fear and doubt can really paralyze us as leaders. Kevin, absolutely. I think especially in leadership, the fear of making a mistake, the fear of looking incompetent, the fear of being wrong, these are all things that really can trip people up. But when we remind ourselves that part of the being human in leadership, part of showing our humanity is acknowledging the times when maybe we've felt a little bit nervous, or to, as we're talking to a team member who may be expressing some kind of doubt or concern or fear to us, to say, hey, oh, I remember when I dealt with something similar and I was really afraid to tell anybody. And this is what I did to get through that. Sometimes people look at leaders and they think, oh gosh, like you never struggle or I can't relate to you. But as leaders, if we can take those little micro moments of vulnerability to be able to open up to another person and share with them, hey, this is how I navigated this situation when I was going through it, that helped me get to the other side. Just having that human to human conversation can be enough to give that other person who's doubting themselves and feeling anxious, sometimes your words can be all that they need to move through whatever that hard thing is. So never underestimate the power of your own story. Never underestimate the power of your past and the things that you've overcome and the things that you've navigated to help you get to where you are, because they could really speak to somebody else who was in a similar situation to where you were 5, 10, 15 years ago. And you sharing your story could help them feel more validated in their own and help them to get unstuck just by hearing what it is that you have to say. So Kevin, I really appreciate you adding in that sort of that last perspective to be able to give me the opportunity to kind of share that final thought. So with that, thank you all for being here today. Oh, and Alicia, I didn't even see you. Sorry about that. Putting yourself in situations without a plan, borrowing other people's belief in you, taking those baby steps, that intentional living. Yes. Alicia, thank you for mentioning those things. Sometimes the chat gets a little bit wonky here on LinkedIn and I miss stuff. So I'm glad I scrolled back up. So with that, again, I want to thank all of you for being here today, for joining us for this conversation. Again, if it's something that's still percolating in your mind, feel free to send me a message. Send me a DM if you want, if there's a question that wasn't answered. But I appreciate all of you being here, and I will see you again in 2 weeks. So have a great rest of your week, everybody, and I'll see you soon. Bye.